Sunset Boulevard is a classic film noir directed by Billy Wilder, known for its compelling narrative, sharp dialogue, and memorable characters. The film explores the dark underbelly of Hollywood, fame, and the consequences of living in the past.
I am New York City, zero budget guerrilla filmmaker Sean Weathers.
And I'm Canadian screenwriter and playwright Angus Combe, and we're about to explore Sunset Boulevard. The No Rules Film School is now in session.
Like many great films, when you rewatch them, you see them through new eyes, especially when a long period of time has passed. And it was a long time before I rewatched Sunset Boulevard. And I think my memories of it changed because I've changed since I watched it. I've seen a lot more movies. I've educated myself more on film. And also, my judgment on it was clouded based on what it was promoted as, similar to another film we did, Tropic Thunder. You kind of believe the hype. Uh, when I was a kid, uh, high top shoes was a big thing. Oh, you got to get high top shoes. It's going to protect your ankles. That was a myth. It was never true. But if you hear it enough, you're going to be like, oh, yeah, I need high top shoes because that's going to protect my ankles when I'm jumping. And no, it doesn't. It doesn't even touch your ankles. How does it protect it? But if you hear something enough, you start believing it. So obviously, I'm going on a wider scope to come back to, I'm going macro to now go back to micro. Um, but with Sunset Boulevard, I don't really, after this last view, I don't really view it as like a showbiz movie. It's a movie about living in the past and the consequences that can have. It's about a cycle of isolation leading to depression, depression leading to isolation, and how it affects our two main characters. And I view, honestly, the main villain of the movie is the panty sniffing butler.
He wanted a scene where he'd be shown washing Norma Desmond's undies, which again is a very kind of the perverse quality that has always been identified with Stroheim.
Max von Mayerling.
Yes, you'd have to listen to our commentary track to get that reference. But he enables Norma's delusion. He's writing her fan mail. He's supporting all these delusions that she's having, which is keeping her in the past and not letting her see the present or reality. And she's living in this fantasy world, again, which was heightened by working in a world, the film industry, that is all about fantasy. It's all about pretend. And I think him enabling her is what leads to her psychosis, her complete mental state, which ultimately leads to the famous ending. And I do have to retract something I said on the commentary, which is something you guys should listen to, which hopefully will be out before this. But I was wrong about the beginning sequence. I thought they didn't show his face. I thought the whole point, I was using, I forget exactly what you call it, but it was when your brain kind of assumes what it's going to see and not actually following what your eyes are seeing. So I was following the logic of my brain that why would you show his face? The whole point is that you see his back and then you see his face of, the main character, well, the male lead character being killed, but you actually do see his face at the beginning. So you didn't spoil the ending, as I claimed you did on the commentary.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate you bringing that up. And that's something I've always, like, to me, it was just obvious that was him at the beginning of the movie. And it just didn't occur to me that some people might not realize that that's him. And it's a surprise at the end. I don't know how many people experienced it that way, but I certainly knew from the beginning, and it made it a very interesting movie because it was a dead guy telling the story.
Yeah. I always thought it would be more interesting if it was a surprise, that, oh,
Well,
wait a minute, it was the dead guy all the time telling the story. Or because you knew who was telling the story and you knew someone was dead in the pool.
yes.
But I thought it would have been more interesting if you didn't know he was the dead person in the pool.
Well, yeah, I mean that would definitely be another way to do it, but I guess it's a
Yeah.
question. It's a little bit again. It's like that Hitchcock's famous thing about you put a bomb under the table, and if you don't tell people it's there, it goes off, and it's a big surprise. It's a big shock. So it might have worked as a shocking twist that that's him at the end, but by telling us right away, then we're kind of thinking, oh, gee, well, how did this happen? How did he get here? And we're sort of, it's a different experience. I'm not saying
Well,
one is
it's
better
the
than the other.
classic suspense versus mystery.
Yes, yeah, and I think they're both valid. They could have both worked, but yeah, I always found it interesting that they reveal that he's dead, and in fact that he is dead. It's very uncommon for a dead character to be narrating the story.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, Aside from the just the general storyline, which is interesting, obviously the framing device that we just went into a little bit about a dead person telling the story of how he was killed,
Yes,
and his ultimate downfall. Aside from everything you're seeing on screen as far as the story and how things play out, the performances I thought were amazing as well, especially Gloria Swanson. I thought she was amazing.
yes, I agree. She's totally amazing. She is in a way the over the top silent film actress, but at the same time, she's totally believable. She's totally real. You don't think she's overdoing it. You think she's being who she is.
Yeah, I joked that her performance reminded me of like Mommy Dearest, another film
Yes.
we did. Um, but it just shows you that you can take a similar character and similar performances, what minor tweaks can be the difference of, am I laughing with you or am I laughing at you? And uh, refresh my memory. Mommy Dearest starred Faye Dunaway, right?
Yes. Faye
Yes,
Dunaway.
Faye Dunaway
Joan Crawford.
as Joan Crawford, correct? Yeah, and that was one of our more popular podcasts as well when we covered So Bad It's Good, and that specific
Yes.
review is a popular review as well. You guys can check out on the channel. But yeah, just minor tweaks can make the huge difference. Similar to the beginning sequence, in that Wilder, who's a great writer director, he originally had a different opening sequence, but when audiences first saw it, they were laughing at it rather than with it. And he ultimately changed it for the better. And again, there's a fine line when you're trying to add humor or satire. Are people going to be with you, or are they going to be, not necessarily along for the ride and not necessarily get it? I think you mentioned a friend
Yeah.
of yours not quite getting it, like, that
Yes.
the whole idea is that this character, what's the name of the male lead character that William Holden plays?
Joe. Joe. Joe.
Joe
What is his
Blow.
last? No.
Joe Schmo.
Uh, just a
William
second.
Holden, we'll call it.
Joe Gillis. Joe Gillis.
Joe
Joe Gillis.
Gillis. Okay,
Okay.
so the Joe, after you know what, after you spent all that time trying to get his name, I'm not even gonna call him Joe Gillis. I'm just gonna call him
No.
William Holden. Just for spite.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
So the whole idea of the William Holden character is that he kind of he sells himself out. He sees an opportunity and he doesn't keep his integrity. He sees an opportunity
Hmm.
that he can try to take advantage of, and it shows the downfall of what can happen when you don't stay true to yourself or when you try to take shortcuts. And I thought that was pretty
Yeah.
interesting. And
Yeah.
I think it's kind of it's a character or arc that you've seen in other Billy Wilder films, and you can almost say that this character is in an avatar for Wilder. And I think Wilder, if we want to talk about him for a second, great
Yeah.
writer, great director, and he's done a
Yes.
lot of great movies. This might be his best.
Yeah. And as we touched on in the commentary, which everyone should listen to, he always liked to work with writing partners, and his main partner was Charles Brackett. And this was the final film that they wrote together, and perhaps the crowning achievement, perhaps their greatest film. And they both went on to do other things, but some people argue that they never really were as good apart as they were when they were together. And this might be the best thing that they ever did. The writing is amazing.
Yes, yes. Um, Again, they could have used more panty sniffing though.
He wanted a scene where he'd be shown washing Norma Desmond's undies.
They could have used more panty sniffing.
Well, if Erich von Stroheim was directing it, I'm sure that would be the case.
People have no idea what we're talking about. But
No,
just real briefly, I mean, listen to the commentary, you'll hear more detail. But in listening to the extras and watching the extras, which there were a ton of on the version I have, there was a mention that Erich von Stroheim, who actually did direct Gloria Swanson in the movie that she plays in the movie, when she's showing it to William Holden. I'm not going to say Joe Lewis.
yes.
She's showing it to William Holden. It's actually a movie that Stroheim actually did direct, and he did direct Greed, which is historically looked at as a great film, but it was like an 8-hour film. Today it would be like a mini series or something, but it was just too long and too expensive, and his career was kind of derailed after that. Not necessarily after Greed, but after the movie that plays in the movie, starring
Yes.
Swanson.
Queen Kelly. Queen
Yes,
Kelly was the movie.
yes, and you cannot give me this trivia later because I already know it. She was
Yes.
dating JFK's father at the time, and I guess
Yes.
he was a producer in the film, and she called him up specifically say, "This idiot directing this film doesn't know what he's doing. It's going and shit her, like, get the hell over here." So she had something to do with his downfall. So their dynamic in the film is kind of interesting as well. You could almost say it's kind of cruel on the part of um, Billy Wilder here to put him in that type of position. Um,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
yeah, and it's kind of ironic at the end, he's kind of directing Gloria Swanson in in that last scene of the film where she's coming down and she thinks she's on a movie set where she's actually being arrested. But if you want to get super meta, she is actually on a movie set,
Yes. And
technically.
that's one of the other great things about this movie is that it blends reality with fiction. There are many people in here playing themselves, famous people, formerly famous people, and real locations. It really does a great job of kind of blending that fiction and nonfiction, and it kind of makes it all seem more real. And even characters like Norma Desmond, you could say, is a thinly veiled version of Gloria Swanson in some ways, and other silent stars, and also Erich von Stroheim playing Max von Mayerling, basically playing a version of himself. So I love that part of this film. I love that aspect. I think it's very clever, and I think it was very ahead of its time in that way.
It goes beyond that as well because they were actually shooting on Paramount, the Paramount lot. So they could
Absolutely,
have made up a
absolutely.
different fake studio name, but they called it Paramount. They shot in a Paramount lot, and
Yeah,
that
and
extended to it.
some people thought that Paramount might not like this. They might not want to be associated with it because it's a fairly negative portrayal of a lot of aspects of Hollywood and filmmaking. But they were obviously okay with it. They just let it be Paramount, and they didn't hide it at all.
Great, great film. One of the better films we've done. We take another look at William Holden, who was also in one of the films we reviewed last year, um, the Wild
The
Bunch.
what? Yes.
Much later on in his career, this is early in his career, but a great actor, underrated actor because he's not talked about a lot today.
Yeah.
But we may revisit him later again because I love Network. I thought that was a great film.
Yes.
And late in his career, I think he posthumously won the Oscar for that. I think he came home drunk one day. He cut his forehead on a nightstand or a dining room table or liver something.
Yeah.
He cut his and he bled out because he was drunk and just couldn't wake up, which is a
Yeah.
sad way to go. But he was a
Yes.
great actor. He was great in that film. He was also great in The Bridge Over River Kwai, which is a David
Yes.
Lean film. not the best
Yes,
David Lean film, but one of the great David Lean films. Definitely
yes,
want to definitely want to do a David Lean film at some point. Um,
yes.
but I probably more lean towards starting with starting the uh, Arabia, the what's the name of that?
Lawrence of
Lawrence of
Arabia.
Arabia. I knew it's something
Yes.
Arabia. Like the Knights of
Yeah,
Arabia,
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Aladdin, something. So
yes.
yeah,
Well, in some ways, Sunset Boulevard is what started to make William Holden a star. And when he reunited with Billy Wilder to make Stalag 17 in 1953, that really pushed him to a whole new level. And he won the Academy Award for Best Actor for that one. And he actually, very shortly after that, became one of the top grossing Hollywood stars. He was in the top 10 several years, and he actually was number one in 1956. He was apparently the top grossing Hollywood star that year. So, and he did do one more with Billy Wilder's Sabrina in
Sabrina. Yeah.
1954. So, yeah, lots of great movies that he did. And I think you awarded him one of the top acting awards for the movies we watched last year, right? For
Yes,
his
our
performance
year-end awards. Yeah,
in the Wild Bunch, and deservedly so. I think this just confirms he is one of the great actors, definitely.
absolutely, absolutely. Any final thoughts?
Just that it's a great movie, and I think Sunset Boulevard remains a timeless classic due to its engaging narrative, unforgettable characters, and its exploration of universal themes. Wilder's satirical take on Hollywood, combined with the outstanding performances, ensures that this film continues to captivate audiences and remains a significant piece of cinematic history. While I'm sure that they won't be as good as Sunset Boulevard, what other movies or shows have you watched this week?
So, I kind of, since we've started doing this podcast, I've kind of limited the movies I watch to the movies we watch for the podcast. So I'll have to again defer to a TV show I've been watching. If you can still call it a TV show, I guess a streaming show
Yeah,
on Amazon. Gen V. So The Boys is, well, Gen V, I'll start off with Gen V. It's a ancillary to The Boys, like a spin-off show. And when I started watching The Boys, so I grew up reading comic books. I was a big comic book nerd as a kid. I just loved comics. And when I see a show or a movie based on a comic, and it's a comic I haven't read, like I'll go and I'll consume that comic book. I did that with The Walking Dead, and I also did that with The Boys. Um, and the thing I liked about The Boys is that it used history of decades and decades of history of X-Men and Avengers and Punisher and all these comics. And then they just made like these avatars or these Elseworld versions of these heroes. So you weren't just coming into a new world, you were just coming into a familiar world because they were just different versions of all these characters you're familiar with. So I kind of like that aspect of it. That got me into the comic book and into the TV show. And, since it's been a while since that show was on and this came out, I figured I'd give it a chance. It's not as good as The Boys, but if you have a Jones for The Boys and you haven't seen it in a while, rather than rewatching it, I would say this isn't a bad watch. Nothing special, nothing great. It kind of has the same tone of it. Super ultra violent, shades of gray characters. Unlike The Boys and unlike the comic book, these characters don't really have direct avatars or direct spin-offs. You can't just, oh, this character is a version of, Superman or Batman or Wonder Woman. You don't really see that as much in the show, so it is missing that element. But I'd say if you like it, it's worth a watch. It's okay, nothing special, but it killed a few hours for me, so I'm not complaining. And I also pay for Amazon Prime, so I try to get my money's worth. So
oh, makes sense. So this is kind of like a sequel or a spin-off
it's a
from The Boys.
spinoff.
Is that
So it's
it's
in
a
the
spin-off?
same universe.
Yeah.
It's none of the characters were part of the boys, but it's in
Okay.
the same universe as the boys. So it's
Right.
like in
Okay.
this world, they also exist, and the boys also exist. A few of the boys' characters made brief cameos just to emphasize that they coexist in the same universe, and I guess also just to boost up ratings as well. But it's ancillary. You don't have to watch it to know what's going on in The Boys. But if
Okay.
if you like it, it's like, it's like All in the Family had like 12 spin-off shows or something.
Yes.
It's kind of like that. You didn't necessarily
Yeah.
have to watch The Jeffersons to watch All in the Family, or
No.
Maude, or like a million other spin-offs that
Yes.
All in the Family had. You could just watch All in the Family, so it's kind of like that.
That's true. And I haven't seen The Boys or Gen V, so you would recommend The Boys as a starting place?
I would recommend The Boys as a starting point. If you don't like it, obviously don't watch Gen V. If you're kind of
Right.
lukewarm or you barely like it, don't watch Gen V. I would say the only reason to watch Gen V is if you really like The Boys.
Okay. Sounds good. I watched a couple of things this week. The first one was a movie called The Ghoul from 2016 by a guy named Gareth Tunley. And the description of it is essentially a homicide detective goes undercover as a patient to investigate a psychotherapist that he believes is linked to a strange double murder. And as his therapy sessions continue, the line between fantasy and reality begins to blur. I really enjoyed this movie. It actually gets good reviews. It did well, I think, on the festival circuit. It doesn't rate as highly with the general public, but I think that's because it's a tough movie in a way. Like it's one of these movies where you're not sure what's real and what isn't real, and are we in somebody's head or not? And the description of the movie, it kind of, you start to question it. Is that really what this movie's about? But I found it very interesting and compelling, and in a way, it reminded me a little bit of another movie we watched for the show, which was, these are both super low budget, sort of independent movies. And now the name is escaping me, but the time travel science fiction psychological movie that we watched.
Primer.
Primer, thank you. Yes, in a way, it reminded me of that. Not that they're anything alike; they're completely different stories, but just in the way that they're complicated and they're almost like a puzzle that you need to sort of figure out what's really going on here. And it is very psychological and very surreal in a way. And it actually made me think you might enjoy it, Sean, because I know you appreciate that kind of psychological uncertainty, I guess, is the best way to put it. So, if you're interested in a sort of low budget independent kind of sort of horror, not quite horror, there definitely are some supernatural implications, but again, we don't know what's real, what isn't real. Is it all in a character's head? But and I think the ending might be unsatisfying for some people because it doesn't really give you all the answers. You're not really sure. But I found it very interesting, and it's the kind of movie I look forward to seeing again to try and unlock what is actually going on here.
Well, Angus, I haven't seen the movie, but I did see the trailer before we started the podcast.
Oh, yes.
The trailer kind of reminded me, I don't know if you saw this movie. It's another low budget movie, Pi by Darren Aronofsky. The trailer kind of reminded me of Pi a little bit. So
Pi.
I don't know if the movie had any similarities to Pi, but the trailer did. Kind of this paranoid lead character who thinks who thinks there's this conspiracy going on. Is the conspiracy real? Is it not real? There's evidence that it is, but it also feels like this character is losing touch with reality. He's super smart, so it's plausible that like there's this secret government society trying to pick his brain and know what's going on. So Pi kind of has a feel like that, and this trailer kind of had a feel like that. But trailers can be deceptive, so I don't know if they have anything to do with each other, but it kind of reminded me of that.
Yeah, well, I think that's a fair comparison. I haven't seen Pi in a long time, so I don't remember a lot of the specifics, but I think, that does seem like a good comparison. I suspect they are very much their own stories, but yeah, if you enjoy movies like Pi, then this might be another one to take a look at.
Yeah, I love Pi, and I'll consider this.
Yeah, cool. So the other one I watched was called Nightmare from 2022, and I'm not going to be able to pronounce this, I don't think. Kirsty Helen Rasmussen is the name of the director, a woman. And
Oh God, we're talking about a woman director. Come on. What are we doing here?
oh well,
A woman abroad?
Well, there's more and more of them these days. The horror genre. There's a lot of women directing films, and this is a horror
Are they making houses with less kitchens in them or something?
That's a good question. I don't know. Houses, yeah, I don't know. But yeah, this movie.
You completely killed my joke. Women belong in the kitchen. You're like, wait a minute, houses without kitchens? You made it sound like I'm being serious. How dare you ruin my joke?
Well, I was going with it. I was not trying to ruin it. But yeah, so this is a Norwegian film. And, there's been a few films in recent years that have names very similar, like The Nightmare. I think there's a couple of others, but this one is fairly new, and I'd never heard of it, so I gave it a shot. And the description is Mona and Robbie move into their first apartment when Mona starts experiencing horrible nightmares. As the bad dreams intensify, it is clear something is making its way into the world through Mona. Yeah, that's sort of a good description of it. It struck me as kind of like a weird combination of Nightmare on Elm Street and Rosemary's Baby, but not really as good as either of those films, like nowhere near as good. Not to say it doesn't have its moments, but it kind of deals with the sleep paralysis thing. And there's been a few movies recently that have. I don't know if you have experienced that, but it's when you're sleeping and the body naturally releases a chemical when you're dreaming that's supposed to paralyze you so that you
I thought this was about wet dreams. Sorry.
No. So your body paralyzes you so that when you're dreaming, you don't start kicking and punching, and you don't get up and walk around. Now, people who do that, people who sleepwalk, they actually have some kind of a problem where their body isn't actually paralyzing them, and so they dream that they're walking, and they get up and they walk around. So sleep paralysis occurs when this happens to you, and then you kind of wake up, but you're still paralyzed. You can't really move. And I don't know if you've ever had nightmares like that. I've had a few in my life where I will believe I've woken up and I'm in my bedroom and I'm looking around and I seem to be awake, but I can't move. And there's usually some kind of a threat, like a monster or something in the room, and you can't move. And some people apparently experience this a lot. And there's legends about this being an actual demon that is coming after you. And this movie kind of deals with that. And, honestly, I didn't think it was that great. It's okay, but I don't think that these ideas really came together and they didn't take enough time to develop them. So I can't really give it a strong recommendation. But I think if you're like really obsessed with sleep paralysis and nightmares, then maybe it's worth a look, but I wouldn't really go out of my way for it.
The movie does have a cool poster, though. I like the artwork on the poster. I will say this: I haven't had any sleep paralysis, but I did have that weird dream when you wake up and then you realize you left your house and you're in your underwear.
Yes,
have you had that before?
Yeah, I think I have. Yeah, it's a classic.
Yeah, so thank God, this happened to me. And thank God it wasn't a dream. Lucky me.
Wonderful. Awesome.
You're gonna have a hard time stumping me here because I watched a lot of extras and commentary, so I'm prepared this time.
Okay, well, we'll see how you do. So when Norma Desmond says, "Without me, there wouldn't be any Paramount studio," the words actually could apply to Gloria Swanson herself, because she was like such a big star. How many years was she the top star for Paramount Pictures? Do you know? How many years?
Norma Desmond?
Sorry, Gloria Swanson.
Gloria Swanson, the real person.
Yes, the real person.
Okay.
Do you know how many years?
She was a star? So
The top,
the top star.
the top
So
star for Paramount.
for Paramount. So the silent era ended like 29. So we're
Yeah,
talking about maybe 30 years tops of the silent era. She was a silent era star. She couldn't have gone more than a decade based on the age thing with women that we went over on the
hmm
commentary. So it'd have to have been no longer than the decade. Her prime years, probably like the 20s to 30s. So the most it would be is 10 years in that 30-year period. So I would say a safe number would be 7.
Wow, you're really close.
Oh,
It's actually 6. 6 years
ah,
she was top. So that was good. You got really close to that. Um, so the writers, Billy Wilder and Charles Brackett, they were worried when they were working on this that it was going to make the studio angry. It was going to make Hollywood in general angry. It might make the Hayes office angry. So they didn't want people to really know what this film was about. So they gave it a code name. Do you know what they called this film while they were working on it?
huh. If it wasn't Sunset Boulevard, a code name.
Yes, sort of a fake
No,
name.
I would.
No.
I have nothing to go on, so
Okay.
I just don't know. I don't.
They called it A Can of Beans.
I would have never guessed that in a million years.
No, you would have had to hear it somewhere.
Yeah.
Do you know who originally suggested Gloria Swanson for the role of Norma Desmond?
Is it the butler? Like that director guy? The
No,
panty
no,
sniffer?
no, not him. But it was another director. I'll give you that clue. Another Hollywood director.
Who would direct to Billy Wilder? Gloria Swanson. So they would have had to work with silent pictures. Is it something obvious?
No,
That's not
not if you
obvious. Okay.
not if you
So I
don't
won't
know.
feel like an idiot if I don't get it then.
No,
Okay.
You won't be an idiot.
So they worked at Paramount as a director during the silent era to work with Gloria Swanson, I'm assuming. Or they could have just recommended her because they thought she'd be a good fit.
Yes.
I'd say Fritz Lang.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
No, it was George Cukor.
I would not get that. No, I would not get that.
No, that's again, you kind of have to know. You said I'd have a hard time stumping you, so I'm going for these slightly difficult
I asked
ones.
for it. It's okay. I asked for it.
So how about this?
Okay.
All of the photos in the house of the young Norma Desmond in the movie. Do you know who's actually in those photos? Who are they pictures of?
Oh, it's not her. So it's not like a trick question where it's not Norma, but it's Gloria. It's not like a trick question like that, is it?
Well, I wouldn't call it a trick question, but yeah, you're kind of on to the answer there.
It's Gloria Swanson?
It's Gloria Swanson, yes.
Okay.
So they are actual publicity photos of Gloria Swanson from when she was young.
Okay.
So how about this? Cecil B. DeMille had a pet name for Gloria Swanson, and he actually uses it in the movie. He calls her by this pet name when he sees her, which is another of the detail that people love because it's so accurate. Do you know what that pet
I should
name?
Because we just did the commentary yesterday.
Yeah.
I should know this.
Yes.
What did he call her as a pet name? Grandma?
No.
Oh, God damn it. Well, she had the leopard covering on the car.
Yes.
Maybe Kitty or something like that.
No.
Bro, I'm out, man. That nigga's tripping.
I better tell you. It was Young Fellow.
Oh,
Young
yes. Fellow. Yeah. Yeah.
He claims it was because she was braver than any man. So that was his pet name for her.
Yeah.
So this this one is, I don't know if you can get this answer, but it's the movie's line, "All right, Mr. DeMille, I'm ready for my close-up." It is included in the top 100 quotes of all time by the American Film Institute. Do you know what number out of that 100 it is?
I'm ready for my close-up. Well, this is one of the great films of all time. So I think it would artificially make it higher than it should be because of how good the movie is, because you can have some great quotes in bad movies. So I would say it's definitely top 20 because of how good the movie is. Hollywood loves Hollywood. So it's a film about Hollywood. So I'd say that would make it top 10.
Yes.
I'd say 9.
Say you're very close. It is number 7. The number 7.
See, I said 7 earlier. I should have said 7 again now.
But that was very close and then very logical the way you came down to that. So one last one, which might be difficult, or maybe you know it from watching the extras. The Norma Desmond's mansion, it was not actually on Sunset Boulevard as they claim in the movie. Do you know where the real mansion was?
No. The only thing I know is that it was, that's the only part I know, that it wasn't on Sunset.
It was actually 641 South Irving Boulevard on the corner of Crenshaw and Irving. So there you go. If you happen to remember that from the extras, you would have got that. But now the swimming pool in that house, the sort of decrepit one that doesn't have water in it, it was actually used in another famous movie from 1955. Do you know what movie that would be?
Obviously, this is another Paramount movie. I think I know this one. It's a movie that starred James Dean.
It is, yes.
It's either, is it Escape from Eden or Rebel Without a Cause? Is it Eden?
Well, no.
Rebel.
Rebel Without a Cause.
Damn it.
But again, you were right there. You were zeroing in on it. So yeah, it was used in Rebel Without a Cause. And on that note, I guess we'll end trivia. And you did pretty well on this one. You got very close.
I'm getting better. I'm getting better.
Yeah. So final thing is what's up next for us? So
we keep adjusting. We keep evolving. We keep morphing into all these different things. We're like, Mystique or something. Like, we keep shape-shifting. So what we're going to do is, initially the plan was, depending on how far back I go, the plans change so much, right? The last plan, maybe I should be more specific. The last plan was that we're going to do a full month of Black history. But we decided to maybe cut back down on that, maybe just do one film to celebrate Black history. And instead, we're going to focus maybe on doing some multi-film arcs. So instead of just doing a singular serial type situation, we're going to do maybe a film that leads into another film. So like sequels and things like that, and do it consecutive as opposed to just doing it overall. So the first one we're going to attack is going to be Star Wars, the original trilogy. Not sure if we're going to do all 3 because there is a significant drop-off with Return of the Jedi. So that's up for debate, but we're definitely going to do Star Wars, and then we're going to do Return of the Jedi, the next 2 episodes. And something that we haven't discussed yet that I'll bring up now is the possibility of doing them, recording those, and then recording a podcast instead of recording Star Wars, recording a podcast, recording Jedi, recording a podcast. Maybe the possibility of just recording Star Wars, recording Jedi, then doing a podcast on both, or doing all 3 and then doing a podcast that covers all 3. So that's something we can discuss, but that's another possibility, another change potentially in the game plan.
Yes, so, indeed.
But what is our motto, though?
Our motto is there are no rules.
Exactly. So
we
are no rules. So we
have no rules.
We make the rules to break them. So
that's right. That's right. And yeah, when you said better not go all the way back, we would probably need an entire podcast to just go through all of the different ideas we had before we got to this one. So
Yes,
we
yes,
do keep changing. We do keep morphing into
yes, we
different
do.
things. Yes, but that keeps it interesting, doesn't it?
I think so. I think so.
Yeah. Yeah. So there you have it. Star Wars up
Yeah.
next.
I think we need to script a sign off. So we
Yeah.
script the beginning and the end of
Yeah.
the exploring. I think we need to script an end for the podcast so we
Yeah.
don't trail off like this.
Yeah. It wouldn't be a bad idea. But then
Yeah,
again, there are no rules here. So
that's
if we
true.
if we felt like trailing off, we could trail off.
We could. I think it's
Yeah.
better to have
Yeah.
a sign off. A
Something to
sign
aim
off is
for.
better than a trail off.
Yes. And we're supposed to say each other's names more. Sean.
Yes, yes, yes. Yes, Angus. You're correct. So we got less than a minute left. Would you be available to do the commentary for both films next week? So maybe start a little bit early, maybe do Monday and like Wednesday or Monday and Thursday or something. So we don't have to wait 2 weeks to get both movies in.
That might be a possibility. It depends a little bit on the work schedule. Like things
Okay.
are kind of heating up
Look
again.
into it.
So
Let me know by
yeah,
the end of the weekend or whenever you
yeah,
have an idea if you think you can
sure.
squeeze both in. And then if
Yeah.
it's possible, let me know which days they may be. Because I think
Okay.
like maybe let's just try to get 2 movies done next week, you know?
Yeah.
See how this. Especially since it's, you know, it's like two it's you know, it's a franchise. It's like, you know,
Yeah.
one leads directly into the other. So
That's right. It's like watching Greed, 8 hours of one story, in a sense.
He wanted a scene where he'd be shown washing Norma Desmond's undies.